In today's video, we're going to talk about all the crochet tools you actually need. These are the crochet tools and supplies that I cannot live without. Whether you're new to crochet and you just don't know where to start, or you've been crocheting for a while and maybe you want to pare down, this video is going to be super helpful for you. To make things easy, I compiled all of the information we're talking about today into a blog post. I'll have that linked below. I've also compiled everything we're talking about today into a handy printable checklist. So that way you can take it to the store and mark things off so you know exactly what you need, or just have it handy when you're shopping online. So it's completely free and I will have that linked below. Be sure you go ahead and grab yourself that before you head off to the store. First things first, let's start with crochet hooks. We really can't crochet without those, right? I am going to share with you my top 3 recommendations. If you want a deep dive into my entire crochet hook stash, most favorite to my least favorite, I will have that video linked up here and also in the description box below, so be sure to check those out. But in this video, I'm just going to share my top 3 favorites. My very first favorite is my Clover Amour crochet hook. The full set of this is a little bit pricey, but you can buy these individually. So if you're just starting out with crochet, I highly recommend you pick yourself up either a 5mm or a 5.5mm crochet hook. This one is just, it's buttery soft. So the tip of it is brushed aluminum and the handle is a soft grip rubber, and it's so easy to work with. It's so nice to work with and it's so smooth. It glides through the yarn like a dream. And when you're just learning, it's important not to spend too much money just in case you don't like it. But in order to actually give it a good try, you need to use a nice quality tool. So you can pick up one of these for less than $10. So I think that it's totally worth it. Clover Amour, that's a really great one to look for. My second recommendation, and one that is similar to the Clover Amour, is the Boy Ergonomic hook set. So these come in a set. I don't know that they come individually, but you can purchase the full set, which comes with wide range of sizes for about $35, so it's not too bad. The handles on these are just a little bit bigger. I will say they don't feel like they're quite as good quality as the Clover Amours, just because there is a visible seam in the soft grip rubber, and also the aluminum tip is just not quite as smooth, but it's still a really great hook and it's a really great affordable set. My third hook that I'm recommending are the Susan Bates bamboo handled hooks. They are really pretty and they're also just comfortable to use. These I don't believe come in a set. These are just sold individually, but these are usually easy to find at most craft stores, or most craft stores might even have a similar version that may not be the Susan Bates brand, but their own little bamboo version. But they look really pretty in photos and they're comfortable to hold, and they're also inexpensive. So I really highly suggest these for beginners as well. My next must-have are yarn needles. So these are something that I could not live without. This brand is Clover. It comes in a nice little case. These ones are my absolute favorite. I have straight ones as well, but these ones are gold and they are angled tipped, and they just make it super easy to weave in my ends just because of that little angle that they have there. So I love using these, and then I love that they come in a little case, and then they can easily fit into a little pouch just like this, or into my pencil cup. I actually keep mine on my desk with a couple other things that I like to have. This is just actually an eyeglass, like an eyeglass holder. I actually have another one. This is a straight one that I have, but I just keep that on my desk like this, so I always know where they're at. Basically, organization is key, and we will talk about that in a little bit. The next crochet tool I cannot live without are stitch markers, and 2 different kinds. So I love the locking stitch markers, which this is a little set that I got off of Amazon, and it comes with all sorts of different colors, and I forget how many pieces it was, probably like 100 pieces, I would say. So I love locking stitch markers and open stitch markers, and there's definitely different purposes for both. The open stitch markers is what I love to use to mark the beginning or ends of rounds. And that is because they are easy to just slip in a stitch and pull out of a stitch, and you just need one hand to do so. The locking stitch markers, you do typically need to use two hands, so they're just not quite as convenient as the open stitch markers, but sometimes projects call for a locking stitch marker, or sometimes just a locking stitch marker is more practical. But I like to have both in my stash, and I consider both a necessity. The next crochet tool I cannot live without are scissors, and specifically embroidery scissors. I got this pair of scissors. It came in a 2-pack off of Amazon, and they were just super, super pretty, and they're super, super sharp, and they're also nice and small. I love these scissors. These are my favorite. This pair looks kind of antique-y a little bit, I guess. The shears part is silver, and then the top handle part where you put your hands, they're really, really cute. And the other pair of scissors that it came with were small ones just like this, and they were a pair of gold stork scissors. So I think the bottom sheer part is a silver color, and then the stork part is also a gold. I could not find those. If I don't put them away when I'm done with them, sometimes I can tend to lose them around the house, but that's why it's so nice that that set came with two. And yeah, so it's always nice to have multiples. But I like having a little pair because they're easy to just slip into my project bag if I need to, or into a little zippered pouch where I like to keep other notions. But embroidery scissors in particular, they're just nice and sharp, and they're very important to have. So at some point at the end of your project, or maybe mid-project if you're switching colors, you're going to need scissors, and these are just my favorite ones. All right, so we're moving into my last absolute essential crochet tool, and that is, well, a couple of things, but I'm just grouping them into one, and that is a straight edge ruler or a gauge checker. I like to use both. I have two of these gauge checkers, and then I have a few rulers, and kind of like the scissors, they get dispersed around the house as I'm using them because I like to crochet and knit on the go, and I'm constantly using one of these. So this is what I like to use when I am measuring gauge. I like to either use this or just some sort of straight edge to measure my gauge, because that's going to give me the most accurate number. So in addition to a ruler or some sort of straight edge ruler, I like to have retractable measuring tapes. These are the ones that I have. This is from Rifle Paper Company. I love these, and I like that it's retractable. You just hit a button and it retracts. And then this one is a really pretty one I got in Florida, and it's also a retractable measuring tape. So I like to use these to measure my progress, or if a pattern says to crochet for a certain, length of space that's maybe over 12 inches or over the 5 inches that's on my gauge checker, I always reach for my retractable measuring tapes. And the reason I don't like to use these to measure gauge is just because it's flexible. It doesn't give me quite an accurate as a reading for my gauge, which has to be super precise as a straight edge. So that's the reason why I like to have both. And for the same reason that I like to have multiples of these, I like to have multiples of the measuring tapes as well, because once again, they get dispersed between different areas of the house, or maybe they get dropped into a project bag. And as we all know, I think most of us have multiple whips going on. And if you're new to crochet and haven't gotten there yet, trust me, you will. Moving right along, let's talk about the tools that are nice to have. So these are ones that you don't necessarily need, but they do make life a little bit easier if you do have them. The first one I'm going to talk about is a row counter. So this is a cute little row counter. It's almost like a watch for your finger. So you just kind of wrap it around like this, and you can kind of clasp it in the little things, kind of just like a little watch, and you just put it on your finger. And actually, I'm going to put it on the other way with the button kind of facing you, like so. If I were taking my time, I'd get it on a little bit more comfortably, but you just hit the button to turn it on, and then you just hit it every time you do a row. So it makes it super nice to keep track of your rows. And then there's a little reset button, so make sure you don't touch that until you're ready. But that one's actually kind of hard to push down. You have to really try. This one, the main button to count the rows, is a little bit easier to press down. Not essential, but very, very nice to have. The next nice to have is the Knit Companion app. And I know it has knit in the name, but you can totally use this for crochet patterns as well. So it's an app. There's a free version and a paid version. Of course, you can do a little bit more in the paid version. I think I currently have the free version, but I have had the paid version in the past, and I don't quite remember what the differences were. But this is for digital patterns. So it's really nice. You can upload your pattern into the app, and then you're able to essentially mark it up, highlight it. There's also these tools that are just straight edge lines that you can move around, so you can kind of keep your place in your pattern. So that way, when you take a break for a little bit and then come back, you know exactly where you're at. And also in that app, they also have row counters that are similar to this, but just in the app, and you can just tap on your iPad or tablet the amount of rows that you are, and it also lets you track multiple groupings of rows at the same time. So there's a lot of patterns where maybe you're increasing every other row, but at the same time decreasing or doing some sort of color work. So it's really great. So there's multiple areas to track different things, so that makes it super nice if you're doing a more complex pattern like that. Yeah, so Knit Companion's not necessary, but it's definitely a nice to have. The next nice to have on my list is a yarn winder in Yarn Swift. So depending on your style of yarn that you prefer, you may need this sooner than later, and it may not be a nice to have, it may be a must have. So this is typically for yarns. Let me grab one. This is basically a must-have for yarns that come in hanks like this. So when you buy a yarn in a hank like this, it's not usable out the gate. You need to get a Yarn Swift and a yarn winder to put it into, I don't have any cakes near me. I don't have any cakes near me right now, but to put it into basically a nice little yarn cake that's easy to work with. You of course don't necessarily need this, need a yarn winder or Yarn Swift. You could use so if you undo the yarn, so what you do is you would take this big loop of yarn and you put it on the Yarn Swift, and the Yarn Swift spins, and you would take one of the ends and hook it to your ball winder, and you will manually crank it. There's also automatic ones. I have a manual one that works really nice. It's from Knit Picks, actually, so is my Yarn Swift. I'll have those. Also, I'll have everything that I'm talking about today linked below, so you can check those out. But anyway, that yarn winder just winds it into a perfect little cake. If you don't have that yet, that's perfectly fine. You could take basically 2 chairs and put the backs kind of facing each other and have them separated a little bit, and then put your yarn on them, and then snip one of the ends, and then just kind of roll it into a ball that way. So you definitely don't need a Yarn Swift and yarn winder or Yarn Swift and ball winder, but it's definitely a nice to have, especially once you start getting fancier yarns from maybe a local yarn shop or an independent dyer online. The next and final nice to have item that I have on my list are blocking combs. Before I started filming this video, I was looking all over for my blocking combs. I could not find them. I used them recently and I did not put them back, and I did not put them back where they were supposed to go, and so I couldn't easily find them right now, but I will put a picture of them up on the screen. But those are very, very nice, and those would go along with blocking boards and pins, which I talk about in my essential supplies list. So basically, it looks exactly how it's described. It looks like a comb, but with basically needles. So that way, when you finish blocking an item, so that's when basically you give your finished crochet item a nice little bath, and then you lay it on these foam boards so it can dry, and then you pin it to shape. And then when it dries, it's shaped beautifully, the stitches were able to relax, and your piece will look so much more polished and professional when you're done with it. The blocking combs just allow you to pin a little bit more easily. So instead of using individual pins, you can get these combs so you can put items in place with just in larger sections rather than just one pin. I know you know what I mean, and you have probably already seen what the combs look like. Those are really, really nice to have. So now let's get into the essential supplies we need. These are things that we absolutely need in order to crochet, and I think you know the first one, and that is yarn. So if you are a beginner to learning crochet, I highly suggest starting with something that is a number 4 medium weight yarn that is not like a fuzzy yarn, something that looks like this in a nice light bright color. This is Loops and Threads Impeccable yarn, which you can find at Michael's. I believe it's a Michael's exclusive, but this is just a standard craft yarn. You can essentially find this at any big box craft stores, but I highly recommend it. It's 100% acrylic. It's inexpensive. It comes in a lot of colors. So if you're new to crochet, I suggest picking your absolute favorite light bright color. I say to pick a light bright color only because you'll be able to see your stitches. If you're just learning, don't pick something like a black or deep purple or a really dark brown because it's really difficult to see. So pick a nice light bright color so you can see what you're doing. And I suggest this type of yarn because it's not too fuzzy, it's affordable, and it's pretty easy to find just about anywhere any sort of craft is sold. Maybe not this brand, but something similar. Yeah, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's perfectly fine. So there's a lot of really valuable information on the yarn label. So it'll say what the weight is. So it'll say a 4 medium on it, and that is exactly what you're looking for. And it'll also tell you the size crochet hook that it suggests. So typically a medium yarn suggests a 5mm hook. So I typically like to use a 5.5mm, but it really depends on the project and what the pattern is telling you to use. When you go to the store, the most important things that you grab at first are the crochet hook, the yarn, and probably a pair of scissors. But anyway, so this is the yarn that I suggest, and it's really, really great. I love this yarn for making blankets, for doing granny squares, and for really just making swatches to learn my stitches. My next crochet essential supply are blocking mats and pins, which we kind of touched on a little bit in the nice to haves with the blocking combs. These you don't really necessarily need quite when you first start crocheting, but once you start making finished projects, you're definitely going to want to invest in some blocking boards. So I'm going to take one out, and all these are foam boards with a grid on them, and each of these grids are 1 inch by 1 inch, and they interlock with each other. So you just lay them out in whatever shape you need. The set that I have has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Comes with 9 blocking boards and a set of rest-free pins, and I really, really like this. Again, I will have this linked below. I grabbed this off of Amazon, and these are they're so nice to have. So typically a pattern will give you a finished measurement. So after you give your crochet item a little bath or a gentle steam, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you will pin it to shape, or if you're using a steamer, I like to pin my item to shape to the certain size, and that's where this 1 inch by 1 inch grid comes into place. It really helps you stretch out your item to whatever measurement it's supposed to be. But yeah, so if you give your crochet item a bath, you'll arrange it to the proper measurements, pin it to place, let it air dry. My next item, which kind of goes along with this, is a garment steamer. So this is what I like to use if I am using acrylic yarn. So that is yarn like this. If I'm using acrylic yarn, I like to steam it because blocking doesn't really do too much. It'll help the stitches relax, but it's not going to have any sort of really stretch to it, and it's really not going to change too much. But a steamer really, really helps relax those stitches. If I'm using a wool or a wool blend yarn, I will give it a bath, and then I will just let it air dry on the blocking boards. I love this garment steamer. I don't just use it for crochet. I also use it for just my regular clothes. It's honestly replaced my iron. I hardly ever use my iron. The only time I use an iron is when I'm not at home and in like a hotel and all they have is an iron and not a steamer. And you still always need to have an iron. There's always a purpose for an iron, but I really, really like having this steamer. This is just, I don't know, I again got this off of Amazon. It's just a Conair steamer, and it works really, really well. So this is what I do for my individual granny squares, and also maybe a shawl that I might make in acrylic yarn. I like to pin it into place to shape and then I run the steamer on it, and it really just relaxes those stitches, allows it to fall in place into my desired shape. And then once it's dry, which it does not take long at all, maybe like, 10 minutes on the short end, 30 minutes max, I can remove the pins and then I am good to go. My next crochet essential are storage items. So first I'm going to talk about crochet hook storage, and that is why I love to have pouches like this. So maybe you have more tools, grab a bigger one. If you just have a few tools, something small like this is really, really great. And I think, yeah, this still fits. Ooh, I have tools in here that I completely forgot about. So I don't really use this pouch anymore, but this little white pouch is near and dear to my heart. So when I first started crocheting, I just had this laying around. This is an Estee Lauder. It was like a little Estee Lauder freebie that came with probably a purchase from Macy's. This bag is kind of gross. It's so old and it's stained, but it's like a plastic, like shiny patent leather. And it's white, and then it has pink stitching and then this little gold zipper on the top. But this is what I used from the moment I started crocheting. I kept my crochet hook in here, my stitch markers, my scissors, everything I needed stayed in here, and my yarn needles. And I was always super good about no matter what I was doing, no matter how tired I was, I always put all of my items back in my white pouch. Now, sometimes I would misplace my white pouch, but everything that went into the white pouch was always in here. So, which is really nice. And I was constantly asking my husband, have you seen my white pouch? So yeah, I don't use this so much anymore because now I have my own crochet office where I like to actually keep my crochet hooks out on display. So now I keep my crochet hooks in this pencil cup, which is, yeah, you could totally use a soup can. And this cover is a little granny stitch cover with a little scalloped edge. This is part of my crochet desk. Yeah, my crochet desk pattern set. So that pattern comes with the pencil cup cover. It comes with a desk mat to put your keyboard on, and then also a coaster. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check that out. But anyway, this is what I keep my crochet hooks in typically on my desk. But if I am on the go, I will grab a pouch like this one. I think this one was from like the dollar spot in Target. And then again, this was a free gift, something that I just had laying around the house. So you definitely don't have to go buy stuff. Like I said, a soup can would work great. You could make a little crochet cover and keep your crochet hooks that way. But it's really important to have a place, a resting place for all of your crochet tools to go, or otherwise they will end up lost on the couch forever or just in random spots. And they're kind of like bobby pins and hair ties. If you know, you know. The next storage item that's a necessity are project bags. I like to use reusable laundry bags and reusable produce bags. They're both just lightweight mesh bags, and again, I got these off of Amazon. I'll have them linked below. They're inexpensive. Multiples come in like each pack, and they're so nice to have. So this one right here is a reusable produce bag, and it's just a drawstring bag, and then I'm able to put my crochet project in here. Any notes that I have I can just throw in here, and then my project's contained and not tangling up with other projects. And maybe I can throw this into a basket, or just stick it on my desk or wherever I want to have it. And the same thing with the reusable laundry bags. These ones are zippers, and it's these ones that come in different sizes. The produce bags that I got, they all come in one size, but it was these ones come in different sizes. This was the medium size. There was also a really big size that would be really great for blankets, and then there was also, they came with a smaller size as well. So I love having these keep me super organized. I used to just keep all of my crochet projects in a big plastic bin, and I don't know why it never occurred to me to have everything separated, but all of my yarn would just get completely tangled up. And there were times where I just honestly, stuff was just so tangled. It I had to like cut pieces and it was just annoying. It like was a whole afternoon of untangling. So this just saves time and a lot of energy and keeps you nice and organized. My next and final essential supply is a notebook or some sort of project journal. So you don't have to have a fancy one like this. This is the Rifle Paper Company one and it's just pretty to look at, but you can totally use a little 5-star Mead notebook or whatever you have on hand. Maybe it's printer paper and maybe you just like put it into a binder or a folder. I don't know. But having some sort of just like paper or even the notes app on your phone is imperative when you are crocheting. So that way you can keep track of where you're at. Maybe you keep track of notes on modifications that you make to a pattern, or maybe you're kind of freestyling something and you want to remember what you did. Have a notebook, because as much as you think you're going to remember, you are absolutely not going to remember. And even just something as simple as writing down what the project is and the crochet hook size that you're using, because trust me, you think you'll remember, you will forget. So a notebook is imperative, or some type of project planner. And exciting news, I am developing my very own project planner, which will be coming out soon. If you are interested in that, make sure you sign up for my email list below. So if you sign up for my email list, you'll be the first to know when that planner goes live. Where's the best place to buy crochet tools and supplies? So this is going to definitely be up to the individual and also where you're at in the world, but I am just going to list my favorite places where I like to buy this stuff. So the first one being big box stores. So think stores like Walmart, Michael's, Joann's. Unfortunately, Joann's is no more, or will be no more soon. But Joann's is typically where I got a lot of my stuff. So now I will be shifting over to Michael's, but Walmart also has a lot to choose from there as well. So I like to get, if I'm looking for a acrylic medium weight yarn, Michael's, like those Michael's, Walmart, those are going to be the stores that I like to go to, just because usually if I want that yarn, I want it like today. So I like to just go in person and buy it if I can. And it's also great, they typically have all of these hooks that I talked about today as well. I don't know if I don't think Walmart carries the Clover and Moores, or at least not my Walmart, but I do believe they sell the boy ergonomic hooks. So that is something to keep in mind as well. I do believe that Michael's has both the Clover Amour and the boy ergonomic, and they probably have the Susan Bates bamboo handles. I'm not sure. I know I got some of these from Joann's, and I also got some of them from Amazon. So yeah, so big box stores, you could pretty much find everything that you need, especially as a beginner. So I think most of the stuff I'm talking about today, maybe not the same brand, but you'll be able to find some sort of similar, tool or supply at either one of those stores. The next place I like to buy on are different online retailers. So this is We Crochet and Knit Picks. Those are both the same store, just one kind of caters to knitters and then the other caters more to crocheters, but they have the same yarns. So I absolutely love those stores. They have really affordable and quality yarns in all sorts. They have acrylics, they have more luxury fibers like cashmere blends, they have wool, basically everything that you need, and all of their yarns come in so many different colors. So if you've never checked them out, I highly suggest it. They also have really high quality tools. I haven't gotten any of their crochet hooks, but I have gotten some of their knitting needles, and they're really, really nice. And also I talked about the ball winder and yarn swift. I got those both from Knit Picks. So yeah, they're really great. Again, I'll have those linked below. You can go ahead and check those out. The next online retailer is, of course, Amazon. You do want to be careful though, because sometimes Amazon, I know with yarns, a lot of times their stuff is just way more expensive. For things like the crochet hooks, I believe you can get the Clover Amours for the same price. The Clover Amours are cheaper on Amazon. If there is like a 40 or 50% off coupon to Michael's, then you may be able to get a better deal at Michael's, but I'm pretty sure just the price on Amazon is whatever the price with the coupon is at Michael's. But I'll let you do your own research because obviously prices are always changing. And then I know the boy ergonomics set runs about $35, and I think they're about the same on Amazon as they are at Michael's and Walmart, but you'll have to check your local stores for prices. The full set of the Clover Amours at full price is about $79-80. So with the coupon, I think it's typically around $45. So, and I believe that that is what it is on Amazon as well. And then the Susan based bamboo handles, I think they're definitely under $10. I would say anywhere between $6 and $8 is probably what you'll spend on these. And then the Clover Amours, I think separately are probably about $8 to $10, maybe like the $7.99 price point. So it is definitely worth it to get the set. But again, if you're just starting, I don't suggest getting the set unless you're going with the boy ergonomic. For the Clover Amour, make sure you enjoy crocheting first. I know you will, but just check and make sure first. And trust me, I don't have 2 full sets of the Clover Amours, but I have 2 of the 5mm hook. Actually, you know what? I think I do have, I do have 2 sets of the Clover Amours. You can never have too many crochet hooks. Once you get into crocheting, you're never gonna have too many crochet hooks. But anyway, I don't typically like to get yarn off of Amazon unless it's like a really great deal. So make sure you shop around, check between your local big box stores and Amazon for prices. The next place I like to look for crochet items, and I try to do this as much as possible, and that is my local yarn shop and just maybe some different online specialty shops. So that's the Indie Dyers. That is a lot of shops on Etsy just sell really cute stuff. So if you want to get some more luxurious yarn, I highly suggest just looking on Instagram for some inspiration and finding an independent dyer that way, or also just going to your local yarn shop. You're going to find a really beautiful array of yarns, and that is, like I said before, when it'll come like a hank and when it'll be really beneficial to have a yarn swift and a yarn winder. So that's a wrap. That is everything that you need to start crocheting. And again, make sure you grab your free download. So go into the description box below and make sure you sign up for my email so that way you can get your free checklist. It's super cute and it's just fun. It's just something you can print off, take to the store with you, or have it handy when you're shopping online, so that way you get everything you need to start your crochet journey off on the right foot. I really hope you found today's video helpful. If you did, please let me know by giving the video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!